Welcome to the Run Lift Mom podcast, where we're talking about running, lifting, and momming, not necessarily in that order. Today, we're going to spend all of our time in the momming category, and boy, do I have an inspirational one for you. Caroline Campbell wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. She also wanted to contribute to her household financially, though. I think a lot of us feel that way. So what she did, you guys, she made her own career. This is going to be such a cool story for you to hear because she talks to me about how she got into the world of reselling. That's right, she's a reseller on Poshmark. And then how she's built her business within a community that has an abundance mindset and also picked up business skills that she applies in her everyday process. Whether you're someone that's maybe thinking about doing the same thing, or maybe you're someone who already has a side gig, you are going to learn and be inspired in this episode. Without further ado, I present Caroline Campbell. All right, welcome, Caroline.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, all right. I want you to first go ahead and get into methinks you weren't always going to be a reseller.
That's true.
Tell me a little bit about your background prior to becoming a mother.
So, in 2015, I graduated from the University of Virginia with a philosophy degree. I got married a few months later, and I wasn't really expecting to get married so young. And my husband and I sort of always had this vision of homeschooling, me being a stay-at-home mom, maximizing both our time at home. And then in between there, we had to move from Virginia to Ohio and a long honeymoon, so lots of traveling. So I never entered the professional workforce.
Okay, so how old were you when you got married?
I was 22, just turned 22. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you've got this philosophy degree.
Yeah.
And then you're doing all the big girl things.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you didn't enter the professional world prior to becoming a mother.
Yeah, I did a little bit of freelance stuff, like I would do editing. Would help people pet sit. I worked for a blind woman, assisting her at one point. So I just had this hodgepodge, but I really never had.
You were the gig economy.
Job.
You were the gig economy before it was a thing.
I'm the millennial, with the gigs. Yep.
All right. So then you became a mother.
Yes.
And I'm assuming that being, and let's be very clear. We're not knocking any working moms here.
Yeah.
We know that it's a personal choice, but tell me why being a stay-at-home mom is important to you.
I think for both my husband and I, one of the reasons we got married was because we both knew sort of what type of life we wanted. We really wanted to homeschool. We really wanted, like in a perfect world, he and I would both work 15 hours a week and then be home the rest of the week. So we just wanted to max out family time. And we thought it would just always be easiest. He's self-employed as well. We thought it would always be easiest if we at least always had one parent fully at home all the time. So it was just sort of the lifestyle that we chose and wanted to do.
That is awesome. So you know that I've brought you here because you've created a career for yourself, essentially. Talk to me, though. There might be some listeners out there that are not familiar with the platform that you mainly work from. Can you walk me through Poshmark and kind of what it is?
Yeah, so Poshmark it's mainly an app, but it's also a website. And it is for buying and selling secondhand, and then there's also some new clothing, shoes, and accessories. So it has almost 40 million users. It's growing super, super rapidly.
40 million with an M?
Yeah.
Wow.
5 million sellers, but 40 million, buyers, browsers, stuff like that. So
okay, so this is it like an eBay where someone auctions, or is it like a Amazon where things are listed?
It's more like an Amazon, except for you can make offers. So it's not auctions like eBay, although I do sell on eBay as well. But basically you'll have a price, you'll list something, and then somebody can make an offer or purchase it at full price. And it's more designed towards, it's not really designed for women like me who have a business, although they're very friendly towards that type of seller, but it's more designed for the woman who spent money on a nice purse or a nice diaper bag, and now she's done with it and she wants to recoup that investment, or she lost weight and she doesn't fit in her jeans anymore, and she wants to see some of that money back and maybe buy some jeans in a different size. So it's kind of geared toward the average woman instead of like a business seller.
Okay, but as a business seller, what does your process look like using something like a Poshmark?
So basically there's sort of 3 parts to my business. So I'm sourcing, which is basically me, then this is not my idea. This was a whole group of people. We call ourselves resellers. Basically, we go to thrift stores, consignment stores, secondhand stores, sometimes private consignment, sometimes yard sales, but basically we're sourcing items to sell on Poshmark. So we're looking for higher quality, gently used items, trendy, in-demand brands or vintage goods. There's a whole different, thing for that, but we're basically looking for items that we think will sell on the app. We're purchasing them at low prices.
Okay.
We're going home, we're listing them on the app. They're selling, and then we're shipping them out to customers. So sourcing, listing, and shipping is kind of what my business looks like.
Awesome. So you're going to a consignment shop. You see some awesome Lily Pulitzer dress. I'm saying a brand that I would assume would be in demand.
I do sell a lot of Lily.
Do you really? Okay.
I love it, yeah.
Southern girl, I got to mention that. So you see a Lily dress. It's in fantastic shape. You will take photographs of it, list it, and then when someone buys it, you'll ship it out to them.
Correct. Yeah. And Poshmark makes it super easy to ship. It's a very average person friendly process. So super easy. Yeah.
Very good. So, okay. So you've got these 3 parts to your business. Are you doing all 3 of those things each day? Or can you walk me through what your average day looks like as a business owner?
So basically it's a really dorky name, but I have something that I call a power hour. So that is 4 different tasks that I'm doing every single day that is sort of like the oxygen for the business.
Awesome.
So every weekday, I'm listing new items to Poshmark, listing new items to eBay, sharing my Poshmark closet, which is basically, it's a fancy term for essentially I'm going in and I'm bumping my items to the top of the search feed so that people can see them more frequently. And then I'm putting that inventory in clear bags and putting it away so my house doesn't turn into a total disaster. So every day, that's the oxygen. And then bi-weekly, so if I can usually it's my husband who watches my daughter or my mother-in-law, or I go with my mom and take my daughter. But about bi-weekly, I do one big sourcing trip. So that will be 8 to 9 hours of traveling and shopping nonstop.
Well, shopping nonstop doesn't sound that bad, but I love that you have this as a very, it sounds like a very specific process.
Yes.
Did someone tell you how to do that, or did you kind of fall into it and say, okay, this is where my time needs to be spent and in what increment?
Yeah, so it's kind of something that I developed on my own. And most other resellers, we are all listing daily. I'm very part-time compared to a lot of people. So somebody who's full-time may be listing anywhere from 15 to 100 items a day. I list 3 to 5. I have a toddler, and it's just not, that's what I can manage. So that's what I do right now. But basically, I used to work in a different way. I used to sort of do batch work. So I would photograph all my items for the week over a couple of hours, list them all over a couple hours, and sort of try to just knock out big similar tasks. And then what I found with that was that it was more efficient, but it was a lot easier to get behind. So if I missed that 2 hours, or if my daughter was sick or needed extra attention and I had that time planned out, suddenly I don't have any photographs for the week if I've missed that. And so it's really hard to reinsert that back into my week and get that done. So I think the quicker finishing a complete set of tasks each day, even though it's not as efficient, it works a lot better for our lifestyle, because then I'm only 1 or 2 days behind max if I miss it. And I typically only miss 1 day per month. So that's a pretty consistent.
I love it. So we've got people listening to this podcast that also have their own businesses. I'm thinking of my Zaya team.
Yeah.
So similarly, instead of batch working, a lot of us, I don't think power hour is dorky, because we will split our time into thirds, and we will say selling activities, follow-up activities, and development activities, i.e., checking in with team and developing yourself and that kind of thing. And I want people to hear what you're saying, whether they're a reseller or thinking about their own business, or maybe they're one of my teammates. Hear what Caroline is saying, in that if you always batch your work, if life happens and you have to hit the brakes, now you don't have that work.
Yeah. And it could be a week or two before you could get back into it. So to me, it's just not, it's more efficient, sure, but it's not working for my lifestyle. So I don't do it.
Now, the great thing about a business like you have is that you can, pump the brakes or hit the gas whenever you want.
Yes.
Have you had to hit the gas or pump the brakes?
So this year has been a pump the brakes year.
Okay.
So I'm 8 months pregnant right now. This pregnancy was a lot more physically challenging than my first one. So last year I was trying to list more like 5 to 10 items per day. Okay. Now it's at 3 to 5. And so with that, I've just sort of looked at it as this business is super scalable. And there are times where I can go big and do it a little bit differently. But if I'm being really consistent and direct about those 3 to 5 items, so I don't walk into a store and buy as many items as I did last year, because I know I'm not going to list them. So when I walk into a store now, I'm looking for those, 15 to 20 items per week that are high dollar amounts. So I'm not spending as much time on items that I know will sell but may profit me $10, $15. I'm trying to look for the 20 to 40 profit dollar range instead. So
do you just have a gut for it? Like, do you,
No.
look, you don't look like, Caroline does not, she's a beautiful woman. I've known her all her life. She's my cousin. It's not like you dress like a bum, but I look at some of the things that you're sharing on your Poshmark closet, and it's like fancy brands that I can't even pronounce.
Yeah.
Did you just get an instinct for this?
No, definitely not. And I'm not really a fashion or clothing person. I love my fry boots and I love some of my purses, but I'm not a big clothes girl. So when I first found out about reselling, it was through Instagram. And there's this whole hashtag reseller community. And it's all these people who are on there just sharing what they do, what's working for them, what's not working for them, helping other people out, just sort of in this free exchange of information. And I basically, I created a separate Instagram account from my personal one, and I basically just stalked hundreds of other resellers for about 2 months. And I just learned everything they were putting out. It was all free. It was all available. I was also nursing a lot, 8 hours a day. And so I had the time to just be scrolling through my phone. So, prior to that, most of my clothes came from Old Navy and Target, and there's nothing wrong with that. But, I learned what brands are really flying out, what brands are trendy, what brands are super high end. And I just had to learn and take it all. And then when I went to the thrift store, every single time I would go, if I came across a brand on a shelf that I didn't know, I would look it up. So that was my rule, is I can't go past it. I have to look it up. And so after about probably 6 months, and then I think I hit another learning curve at about a year, I hardly pull my phone out when I'm thrifting anymore.
And how long have you been doing this now total?
18 months. I just hit my 18-month anniversary on Poshmark.
So
yeah.
I love this, and I want to back up for a second. So obviously you've studied it, and experience has been a great teacher. But let's talk about that, the community that you've learned from.
Yeah.
It's really cool. You're talking about this, and we're face to face, so I can tell folks, Caroline is smiling as she's recollecting the other resellers that she learned from.
Yeah.
Are these mostly female resellers, or?
There's a couple men that do come to mind, but I would say vast majority for Poshmark and eBay in the used clothing business are female. There's a lot of guys who are flipping different things, electronics, memorabilia, vintage stuff, but I would say for the modern sort of clothing flippers are mostly women.
It sounds like there's very much an abundance mindset in this community.
Absolutely. We always say there's enough for everybody is a phrase that you hear a lot. And you have to realize too that most of us have been at least once in the back of a thrift store, and most of them cannot keep up with the amount of donations coming in. And most of the donations that come to a thrift store don't even make it on the shelf. So we know there's stuff that's going elsewhere that is not making it. So if you know sort of what's coming in, it's crazy to not think that, like, okay, there is enough for everybody, to be successful. And we all are looking for slightly different things too. I know people whose business models, they don't like to sell things under $100. And I know people whose business models, they're happy making $5 profit off an item, and they just do, 100 of those a day instead of, 2 or 3 big sales. So,
well, and you talked about how your profit margin, you're looking for something different now than when you started.
Exactly.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, so you've talked about time savers being, obviously using your resources, using that power hour as opposed to batching your work. Is there anything else that you do? Obviously, you've got a business model that allows for some flexibility.
Definitely.
Anything else you do in terms of time?
I would just say that my power hour is non-negotiable. Is a big thing.
Okay.
So that's not, which is kind of related to time. It's not something that I try to fit into my day and like work it out. It's really like it has to get done. So I look for, it's 4 different tasks, and each of them take a slightly different amount of time, anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes. So I look for pockets in my day where that time matches up. So like I know that it only takes me 10 minutes to bag that inventory and put it away. So if my daughter has pulled out a book and she's like thrilled with the book and like, really into it, or a toy or whatever, and I can recognize that, okay, I have 10 minutes here, then I'll sneak off and do that, even if it's not when I've scheduled it for the day. So your
power hour isn't necessarily consecutive, but you know that you've got about an hour worth of activity in those 4 categories that's non-negotiable.
Yeah. And a lot of days it does get to be consecutive. I'll work during a nap time, but with this pregnancy, I've been really tired, so I've been napping during nap time instead.
Well, and it's like, what's nice about working for yourself is it's not like the reselling business police are going to come get you if your power hour is 50 minutes and then 10 minutes.
Yes, exactly.
I love that you give yourself that grace. Talk to me a little bit about the discipline that is required for, you're talking about this and you're 18 months in, you're obviously well-versed in it. I've got to imagine you're 8 months pregnant. Yeah. There are some days that you're like, man, I'm not having it. I don't want to do the power hour.
Yeah.
How do you stay disciplined?
So I think primarily a lot of that feeling of not wanting to stay the feeling of wanting to back off a little bit, I think is sort of burnout related. And so for me, I've noticed in this, I'm lucky that my business too is very task oriented. So for me, I can delineate which tasks, I sort of call it boss versus employee tasks. So a boss is always concerned with like a big picture. They're looking at the big numbers. They're, concerned with the overall trends of the business. An employee just has to clock in, do a good job, and clock out. So all of my power hour tasks are employee tasks. So I don't need to be sitting down and looking at my trends, thinking about the big picture, wondering if this is going to sell or not. I sort of just put it on autopilot and become an employee. So, but I'm the boss when I'm sourcing, I'm choosing inventory for the store. I'm the boss when I'm bookkeeping. I'm the boss when I'm taking on these major tasks. But I think separating, like sort of having a psychological difference between, okay, I'm in employee mode, get in, get out, get the work done, versus boss mode, like, hey, let's really look at things. Let's be careful. I think that just helps me avoid the feeling of like, oh my gosh, like another day and like sales are down and this is hard or blah, blah, blah. So for me, it's fairly easy to stay on track with that and remain disciplined through that.
I love that. So I would say for anyone listening that has their own business or is thinking about maybe a hobby that might turn into a business, to think about as you're starting to toy around, what tasks are boss tasks and what are employee tasks? Because we know that a lot of those employee actions are going to yield the things that are going to make the boss happy.
Yep.
But really getting in there and grinding and doing the work is important.
Yeah, it is. That's what oxygenates the business, sort of. It like really gets it flowing. So.
Right. I love that. I love that so much. So, obviously you have to do those employee tasks. Yes. What's your favorite part of the business?
Oh my gosh. I have a ton of favorite parts. I really do love it. I think my favorite task that I have to do is definitely the sourcing. There's like such a thrill when I find something that I know is like spectacular. And especially like I have, you know, I have hundreds of brands in my mind. And so not all of them I've found or anything. I just sort of know that they're out there. So when I can like check one off the list, that's like.
Tell us about a cool like flip that's come to mind or that you've.
I've had a lot of cool ones lately. A few months ago I found, and see, also, I only know these names from online and from my reading, so I butcher, like, all the Italian names. But I found a pair of Salvatore Ferragamo shoes that retailed for $650. And I found items that retailed higher, but these were from recent years, and they were just, like, you know when you touch something that's, like, super high quality, and it's just, like you can tell this is not, like... your normal, like, pump from the store. Like, this is amazing. And it just was so, like, beautiful.
These are not Nine West.
Yeah. I do sell Nine West, actually.
Okay,
those are fairly high quality.
Very good.
But, yeah, so I found those in a thrift store in South Carolina about 3 months ago. I listed them, and these sold for almost $120. So, I mean, that was a good one. That's a lot higher than my average sort of sale price going out. So that was just like such a nice, like they were just so stunning that I like couldn't, if they were my size, they would have been mine. But luckily they were 2 sizes too small. So off they went. Yeah.
Has there ever been anything that, you know, that you had a great gut instinct about and then just bam, it fell flat?
There have been, so my biggest, when I first started, we have this thing in Columbus called the bins, and they have them in major cities as well, usually 2 to 3 per state. And it's basically where Goodwill sends all their clothing that hasn't sold, and they also accept donations. And it's these massive bins that you just sort through. Nothing is sorted, nothing is organized, and you pay by the pound. So it's really cheap. It's a great way to get inventory, but it's very time consuming. When I first started reselling, so within the first couple weeks, I went with my sister-in-law, and she pulled up this jacket, and she was like, I think this is a really nice brand. And I was such a know-it-all that I felt it, and I was like, this is polyester. Like, this feels kind of gross to me. And I just put it back. And I looked it up later, and it was, like, one of the best, like, sportswear brands to flip. It was an Arc'teryx ski jacket.
Oh, yeah.
And I still think about it. Like, I still, like, will, like, be laying in bed being like, why didn't you just look up that Arc'teryx ski jacket? So after that is when I kind of committed to, like, always look things up, because sometimes your gut is wrong. And I just, you know, I wasn't looking at myself as a beginner. I just had a moment of sort of hubris, and I passed out on, you know, something that probably could have sold for $100, $140. So.
Well, and when you were explaining your process earlier, though, you said that you always look things up. So obviously you learned from
early
that
on,
experience.
Yeah, that I don't know everything, and so look it up, and you do not move on until you look it up. So that was a big lesson for me. It was a hard one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Your face as you're describing it is a little bit heartbreaking.
It was a bummer for sure. Yeah. I'm sure somebody else got it and is having a lovely time with it, but whatever.
Yes. Oh, you've created what's really neat to me again is that you've created a career path for yourself that is flexible, that accommodates being a stay-at-home mom and having a family. What if there's somebody out there listening that's considering some sort of home-based business for themselves? They've got that entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah.
What piece of advice would you give them?
I think get started with where you're at. When I started on Poshmark, I took donations from friends and family. I sold a few things that were in my own closet, and just getting that momentum to get going helped me to figure out what I was looking for when I was doing it as a business. So, you know, within reason, set up your legalities, and, you know, if there's rules in your state that you need to follow, then do that, but get started as soon as you can and put yourself out there and just start learning. And also look for people who are doing what you want to do successfully, and don't copy their business model, but learn from them. Go and with Poshmark, I'll go look at other people's stores. If they post on Instagram about, oh my gosh, I had a great sales weekend, I'll go look at their store and say, ooh, I didn't know that brand was selling, or that style looks different than what I'm picking up. Maybe I need to pick that up. So you can learn from other people.
Yes.
If you just open your mind and be willing to be a learner and a beginner.
It's so neat. You know, sometimes it's hard. If you're about to start something, it's really hard to look at someone who's already doing it, right? And you're like, you want to be there. You know, there's a lot of time and effort gone into where they are, but it's really hard to just begin where you are and with what you've got. I love what you're saying about that experience there.
Yeah. I think it can be really challenging, and you you see everybody else's highlight reel, and you might not know, they had a great sales weekend, but their lifestyle may be totally different from yours, and they, may have a partner who helps them full time, or they may not have young children, or if they do, they're in school, so you have to sort of give yourself the grace to have your own lifestyle, find people who are doing, what you're doing with the restraints that you have, and sort of, don't compare yourself, but just see what they're doing to manage that and how you can sort of work that into your own lifestyle and your own business.
I love it. I love it. We have not talked at all about running or lifting, but I really wanted to have you on this because we do talk about motherhood here, and what you have done is created a business for yourself that fits into motherhood and not the other way around.
Yes.
I really, really love that. Caroline, you are Caro Thrifts on Instagram. I'm going to link your Instagram account, and I'm going to link your Poshmark closet in case anybody wants to go shopping. But I'll tell you, in my Zy Active business, I will often, you're very, you give a lot of these business tips about discipline and time management, and I've learned about margins from you, and so I think everyone will be served in peeking at your account, and if you're thinking about starting a home-based business, Caroline is someone to learn from.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This was awesome.
Cool. Oh, you guys, I loved that conversation. My favorite parts were about doing the job on your own terms, and then also how, as an entrepreneur, she stays focused by identifying boss tasks and employee tasks. That's something that I'm going to put into my own business. If you were listening carefully, you heard Caroline is my cousin. Yes, she's my cousin. I've watched her grow and flourish in this business. I'm so proud of her, and I hope that you, my audience, will connect with her. Just click details. You'll see the show notes. I've got some hyperlinks in there. You can connect and learn from her on Instagram, or you can go shopping in her Poshmark shop. Thank you so much, Caroline, for coming on. Until I get into your earpiece again, remember, for while bodily training is of some value, godliness is of value in every way, as it holds promise for the present life and also for the life to come. That's from 1 Timothy 4:8, and this has been the Run Lift Mom podcast. I am beyond excited to announce that Red H Nutrition is an official partner of the Run Lift Mom podcast. I've been a Red H sponsored athlete since November of 2018, which means that I've trained for multiple marathons, a 100K trail race, while using these products to supplement my training as well as on race day. And I think that you can take it to the bank. They work. Some of my favorites are Super Greens, Super Flexi, and ZenRem, but you can click on details in the show notes to shop Red H Nutrition and check it out for yourself. Use code RUNLIFTMOM, that's RUNLIFTMOM, just like the name of this show, to save 10%. Again, just click on details in your show notes, shop Red H Nutrition, and then use code RUNLIFTMOM at checkout for 10% off. It's time for the Red H Nutrition product of the week. This week, it is ZenRem. You guys, I've been a Red H Nutrition athlete since November of 2018, and I tried all the other things first. You know why? Because I didn't think I needed anything to help me with sleep optimization. We know that sleep is very important for recovery and showing up to run, lift, and mom your best the next day, but real talk, I go to sleep like 2 minutes after my head hits the pillow. Nonetheless, I tried ZenRem just as kind of a, I'm going to prove to them it doesn't work. Back it up. 7 days later, I realized I wasn't achieving the deepest sleep that I could. I love this stuff. I have linked it in the notes so you can check out the ingredients. This is one of those products that heals your body at the cellular level and allows you to have the best rest that you can. That's ZenRem. Check it out in the show notes. Hey, Run Lift Mom listeners, you know I'm the mom of 4 kids under age 5, and therefore I am always looking for ways to work smart, not hard. Anchor is the smartest way to make a podcast. Let me tell you why. First of all, there are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. But Anchor will also distribute your podcast for you, so then it can be heard on places like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and a whole lot more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It is quite literally everything you need all in one place. And y'all, it's free. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Thank you for your support of the Run Lift Mom podcast. This is a passion project for me that began in February of 2019 and now has over 10,000 listens. It's amazing. This is where I uplift other women and create communities around the areas of running, lifting, and motherhood. If you haven't yet done so already, please rate, review, and subscribe. That helps folks find the podcast and it keeps this passion project going.